I got a lot of slides, so this is going to be difficult since we lost a bit of time. Nevertheless, I'll also try to squeeze in a couple of questions at the end, but I'll just start. Okay, this is the example market research at Mister Spex. Just as a small disclaimer, we developed the stuff that we basically present at Caspar Feld, which is a little agency that does this to earn money. And the other stuff that I haven't learned or created at Caspar Feld, we did at Usolutions, all the qualitative stuff. So this is basically where we draw from. But now, quickly, Mister Spex, we're the largest multi-channel or online omni-channel driven eyewear player in Europe. And now we're going to talk about market research. So quickly, why do I think it's still relevant and particularly relevant in the digital age? What is the digital age? Well, the digital age is basically very dynamic. You all know that. There's tons of new platforms. Customers change their behavior. Every once in a while, a new competitor, a couple of them probably new a week. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of dynamic and a lot of uncertainty. And we got a lot of data, so we can learn a lot. But also a lot of data creates a lot of noise, so the question is, how do I structure it? How do I give it meaning? Why does it make sense to give the data meaning? Well, that's almost a hypothetical or rhetorical question. But I mean, if this is the normal cycle, right? You're either a startup or not, but in a dynamic world, you don't know really what you do. You have a couple of ideas, right? And then you design, you prototype. That could be either a product idea, a pricing idea, a promotional idea, a distribution channel idea, whatever, right? You implement it, you check if it's working, and you start again, because under high uncertainty, the likelihood that you hit the goal every time you try is pretty low. Market research helps to avoid ideas like those. What you want is relevance. And relevance is basically, this is a great chart, I think. This is what people want you to say. This is what you want to tell the people, or this is the products you want to offer, and in the middle is relevancy. What you want to find out is relevancy, and that's where market research helps. It helps, first of all, to understand how big is my market, what are my customers, what do my customers want, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can brief. Briefing is so important, right? Then you can brief your teams, and then you can start prototyping and developing ideas that are relevant, and then you can check if they work or not. That's basically it. You want to generate insights and help to optimize. So what do we do? It's basically in phase one. That was the one up there, right? Where do we create the basic fundamental insights of who we target and what are their needs? It's basically we do quantitative research. Large surveys. They help you to understand the motivation and the fundamental needs. Now, I've been in debates very often of people who do tracking a lot, behavioral tracking, because we can track behavior so well, but it's very hard to interpret behavior, right? If you want to interpret behavior, you need to dig deeper. You need to look into the minds of the consumer. And classic surveys are still a very good tool. The other thing is obviously, yes, you need to track, right? You can track, you should track, your competitors are tracking, because it does tell you a lot about the behavior. And then, if you want to understand the very actual behavior, qualitative research is actually a great tool. Just talking to consumers, because they tell you what is working, what is not working, and why. Very often they have very good ideas how to fix problems, right, if you talk to them. So that's basically the mixture in phase one. And let's run through it. Why is it so important? I mean, this is, again, a very fundamental slide, but if you don't do something that is valued highly by the consumers, and they think you do it better than your competitor, you basically have no business. You got to do something that is relevant to consumers where they think you're better than the competitor. And that's the whole game. You just need to find that out. Is there something that's relevant to them? Do they think I'm better? If not, you need to fix it. And so looking at how we do that part, Basically, we look into the market, and the first thing is, how big is the market? This is 70 million above 14. Then you say, well, what is either not in the target range of 18 to 59 that we have set, so they are out. Then there is a couple of them who don't even use the internet. They are out. And then there is a couple of them who don't wear glasses and contact lenses. They are out. And then there's a couple of them who cannot imagine buying online even with the help of a virtual try-on or a partner optician or a home trial. They are out. And left is 14 million. So we shoot for 14 million. The next thing is we do large surveys. I said it before. We're talking about roughly 4,000 people that we ask, 2,000 in a panel, 2,000 from our own existing customers, and we ask them what do they think about buying prescription glasses. We ask them across, I'd say, 15 dimensions. Do they have fun? How much do they spend? Et cetera, et cetera. This is a summary. There is a segment in the market that actually has fun buying and wearing prescription glasses, and they want to do it online. At least they're considering to do it online. 2/3 of the population in Germany have not fun buying eyewear, by the way. 2/3 of the Mister Spex buyers have fun. That's just try it out. Anyway, so now we understand out of the 14 million, which are the ones that actually have fun buying eyewear and would consider buying online, and we can sub-segment them. What we also know is how large they are, the individual segments, how large the impact in purchasing online is, and what is our market share in each individual segment. The next thing is that we do, now we want to understand why the market share is where it is. So it can either be they don't know you, or they haven't tried you, or they have tried you and they don't like it. So you can find that out, and you can find that out for yourself and every individual competitor. So what we do is we ask, have you known us? Have you visited us? Have you bought? Are you loyal? Right? And we do that for us and every competitor in each individual segment. And what we can find out is there an interesting segment where the funnel performance is not where we want to have it? And what is the problem? Is the problem awareness? Or is it liking? Or is it conversion? Or is it loyalty? Now, always remember the triangle, right? We want to find out what is relevant, why is happening in the market, what is happening. So then we ask what they think about us, not only how they perform in the funnel, how we perform in the funnel, but what they think about us. Do they think we have great assortment? Do they think we have great prices? Do they think we have great service? Do they think we're nice people? Do they think we do something for the environment? Whatever, right? And then we do multi-regression analysis, and we look at the people who know us and haven't visited, and the people who know us and have visited. And we look at them if they have a different picture of us in their minds. And if there is a different picture and it's significant, that's probably what keeps them from going. Right? If there are people who know that we have a partner optician program and they are visiting, and there are people who don't know and they're not visiting, well, the likelihood is that that is the reason is very high. So what do? We tell them we have partner opticians. And we do that for every individual funnel stage and every individual relevant target segment. Then, remember the triangle. Now we know what's relevant. The next question is, do they think we're better? So what we ask is, remember the image. Do you think we have good products? Do you think we have good prices, etc.? And we ask that about all our competitors as well, right? And now we can compare. Do they think we're better? Which segment thinks we're better? Which segment thinks we don't? And then we can debate. And that's basically the big strategic discussion that you're going to have. You know what's relevant for your target segments, and you know where you're good and where you're not. And then you can define your value proposition. Where do I want to play? What is the relevant factors that I want to target? And we do that incredibly nitty-gritty. I mean, if you look at what comes out of it is the brand image, the target image. It's the TV briefing. I mean, TV briefings from us are pages, right? We tell them exactly the target group and what they want and what is the emotion, etc., right? That we want to portray. Yes, we put it into a target brand image where we say, okay, these are the rational benefits that we know are important that we want to hit, and these are the emotional benefits that we want to portray, and this is the reason whys that we want to give, and this is the tonality that we want to have. It's all research backed. We condense it, So for Mister Spex, we want to make optical expertise easy so you can find your look. That's what we want to do, right? Okay, first step. That was the research part, the quantitative research part, right? You know what you want to do, right? So the next thing, obviously, that's the tracking and just a few dots there. You can track the whole funnel, right? But it's really important not only to look at the micro conversions, but to look at the whole thing. And again, to subsegment, right? If there's something broken on the website, or if there's some behavior that you don't like, the conversion rate drops, etc., there are bounces, slices and dice it. As we did with the market research, here again, is it returning visitors? Is it new visitors? Is it existing customers? Is it not existing customers? Is it male? Is it female, right? Is it with a voucher or without a voucher, right? You don't do anything else but the same thing. You look at the funnel until the end and you slice it and dice it. Obviously we do that. I think everyone does it. Now comes the qualitative part. So you found your conversion funnel is somehow not what it should be. The easiest thing is to ask a consumer, and that's where uSolutions or rapid user tests come in. Just go to, and there's competitors, I don't know what they're called, but go to rapid user test, book 10 users, say they should put a prescription glasses in their basket, right, and send it to their home, and just find out how it looks like. This is a very old slide from a research that we did for Zalando years ago. But if you look, this is a man's trousers, and if you look how far they had to scroll down to find a size that men understand. Seriously, there is no way you can find that out through tracking. But yes, possibly, if you have a scroll down tracking on that site, but who has? So just do that qualitative user research. Remember those 3 buckets? The qualitative stuff explain you what is going wrong. And just a rule of thumb. While if you want to have significance of size, relevancies, in terms of overall significant proportions, you got to do large-scale research. But if you only want to find out if you have a bug, and that means a bug on your site, a bug in communication, right? Is your TV spot wrong, right? Is there something that unnerves the consumers? You only need 5 people to have an 80% chance of finding that bug. Because if there is a bug, and you send 1, 2, 3, if they haven't found it, 4, with the 5th, you got 80% chance you found the bug. Qualitative testing, you don't need so many people. I'm not a fan of focus groups, by the way, because it doesn't allow you to go deep enough to really understand very often. You can do focus groups every once in a while, that's good, but I usually just watch them, use it, or have a deep dive with a personal interview. So that's how we try to understand the market. And we try to understand, if we go around, if something hasn't worked, why it hasn't worked. Now phase 2. We had our ideas, we have our positioning, we've started communication, we have our products out. How do I, on a more granular level, or a more not granular, really, how do I control if I'm going well? So, obviously, going back, we have to find our target group. We know what they want. We have identified as a new player, awareness is what helps us get people into the funnel. Well, then we obviously track how much do we have to spend, those are the columns, to create awareness. And we track that. We track that every quarterly. We look at the awareness, how it develops, how much money we spend. That's a very simple thing, right? And you see those 2 lines that are added, right? The awareness is in Germany is the 64. The little lines are now Germany in Austria and Switzerland, but it's data from 2017. It's growing by then. But so you just track, right? The other thing is we have a target image. Right? We have defined what we think is relevant, where we want to be good at, right? And where we want to be better than the competitor. So every quarter we look at if we are better than the competitor and how we develop, right? And here we had one issue, right? People didn't know that we had partner opticians, 500 of them, very, very talented and skilled, and they didn't know that. So the optical expertise that I thought we had was far below what we actually had compared to our competitors, because the others don't. And so we started to communicate that, and that is why it says here the perception of the optician expertise increased significantly compared to the last quarter, because that's what we needed to do. You can do obviously more complicated shit, right? So this was actually before we started to do all the market research. The cost is a very old slide. This is the cost, this is the revenue development. Something was wrong here, right? So we started to go into market research. And if you want to have marketing spend effectiveness tooling, basically, I mean, you look at this, it looks like a correlation, right? So you look at it like that, you look, is there really a correlation? Is that a regression, right? The more money I put into, the more revenues I get out. And how steep is the curve? And then you say, yeah, you know what, but there's all those interdependencies, and I do Google, and I do Facebook, whatever. So, yeah, well, and then you put everything in the model, right? You say, how much money do I put into TV, into whatever? Because especially if you go above the line, if you do out of home, if you do TV or whatever, but also if you do a lot of banner stuff, you know, all the visit stuff, the post-click, post-view tracking, whatever, very complicated. So if you build a complete model, just to say, okay, money in, revenue out, money in, orders out, money in, orders in a category out, whatever, and you segment it again, you get an idea of, you know, where your money is worth. You can then even have someone who knows that shit better than I do, and then you have a vector autoregressive regression model, which is there's time decay, right? TV doesn't work in the first week, people have to remind it, but then they buy the glasses 3 months later. So how long actually does a TV impact impulse work? You can measure that. Right? I can't, people can't. And then, very important, let's say you do something like TV, but not only TV, but you have a new campaign, right? You cannot only check the media plan, right? Because the media plan is highly influenced if you tell people relevant stuff. So if your creative is bogus, right, you can put as much media into the game, right? It's just not going to work. So you need to know if your communication is good. You just need to know it. If you don't know, you're blank. And so what we do, obviously, every large campaign, we put into a panel and just ask people, do you like the spot? Do you think it's relevant? And again, relevancy. The two most important questions that I would ask, right, and that we ask is, actually, well, this might be 3 questions thinking about it. But the first thing is, what do you think was the main message? The second, so does anything stick? The second thing is, was it relevant to you? And the third is, did you like it? And then yes, and do you have a drive to action? Would you like to purchase? That's the stuff that comes in. But those 3, right? Did you get a message? Was it relevant? Did you like it, right? And then you know if your creative is okay. And that's the threshold. If we don't pass that threshold for any larger communication, we go back to the studio and do it again. And actually, because in market research, you can then ask why. And then you have from 500 people, they tell you why it wasn't relevant or why they didn't like it, and then you change it. We had it very often that we had a TV spot, that not very often, but I've seen it a couple of times. With Mister Spex, we only had it once, but with Caspar we had it a couple of times, where people said, I don't like the spot. And then we asked why. And they said, well, ABC, I don't like the music, I don't like the dude, I don't like the girl, whatever, right? I don't think the message is clear, right? Am I saving, am I not saving? And then you go back, and very often you don't have to do all of it again, you just change what they don't like. And we've seen it so often. If you have 10% more liking or relevancy, you get 10% better cost per visit. It's a very, not always, right? But very often it's a very direct correlation between they like your communication and they come to visit. Obviously, you don't only ask for liking. I said it before. Remember, we had that is relevant. That's what the brand should be. Obviously, we ask if the TV spot or any other communication communicates those brand values. Right? If you want to have optical expertise, does the TV spot portray optical expertise? You can measure it. Yeah, that's just testing, an A/B testing roadmap. I mean, we test all types of stuff, right? We test communication on landing pages or banners or whatever. We test all types of stuff, obviously. The only thing that I wanted to say here, and I always say it if I have a talk, is you need to have an hypothesis if you test. Why? Okay, let's say banners, right? You have banner A. It works okay. Someone has an idea for banner B, right? They test banner B. B is better. right? Okay, then they do B. What do they do the next week? How is banner C going to look like if you didn't have an hypothesis? Banner C is again guessing. Only if you have an hypothesis when you test banner B can you learn something for banner C. Make an example, right? So if I have a hypothesis that I sell more glasses if I show pictures of models with frames instead of only showing the frame. That's an hypothesis. So what do I test? I test a couple of banners with models and I test a couple of banners without models. If the banners with models work better, guess how banner C is going to look like? It's going to have models. You need to have an hypothesis. Very simple. But how? So general rules and guidelines. One of my favorite slides is this. When you talk about agile, when you talk about little optimization or whatever, right? You always need to know what's the fundamental direction that you want to go to, right? What's your vision? What's the fundamental goal? What is the fundamental target group and the fundamental need that you want to address, right? Because that gives direction. If you want to climb a mountain, if you don't know where the peak is, right? The likelihood that your little agile steps go in the right direction is very low. So that is also briefing, right? In a briefing, you have to put everything you know and you have to put the direction and the vision where you want to go. It's very often one of the major mistakes that you have if you have junior or inexperienced teams and they brief a creative agency or they brief their graphics department, right, is that they don't brief detailed enough. And there's usually two reasons for that. Sloppiness is one, and most of the time that's true. What they tell you is usually, there's some creative people. I don't want to, narrow their thinking, right? They might have a great idea, and if I brief them too narrowly, right, they might not have that fantastic idea outside my scope, right? That's bullshit. Because A, they are creative people, right? If they have a fantastic idea, they'll bring it anyway, right? If they have a fantastic idea without the scope, they'll bring it anyway. But if they haven't understood the core of the problem, the fundamentals of your business, the fundamentals, needs, motivations of the target group, how large it is, whatever, you are the ones who know that. They don't know it. Why should they? It's not their job. You need to tell them. Long story short. Briefings are incredibly important. And for the briefing, you need to know and have a crisp vision where you want to go. Next thing, customer centricity. We said it before, but I just want to, I could talk about customer centricity all day long. It sounds so easy, but even for us, it's damn hard to be customer-centric every day, but it gives so much directions to the team. There's always a little story that I tell about customer centricity and how it can guide your team as well. So one thing, if you have varifocal glasses, right? So when you get older, like me, you need far side and near side, and so you need to have two different values. And it's very important to have the right centering. Long story short, our idea was to improve the input fields for centering with partner opticians who give us the data. And the idea was that then, obviously, people would get better glasses. And for those where we didn't have the values, we have an algorithm where we calculate the centering. It's very accurate, but nevertheless, we wanted to try that, right? So there was a team working on it, right? And at one point in time, I said, okay, have we deployed the feature? Yes. I said, okay, has anyone looked if we had impact? No, everyone did what he had to do, each individual task. Everyone did a task, right? And I said, well, let's check return rates, right? Return rates should be better, right? If we have more accurate values, right? And actually the return rates were flat, right? And they said, okay, can you check? And what was? Everyone did their task, and there was a little thing. The partner optician entered the value. The value entered our ERP system. The people who got the glasses back entered the value from the ERPs, from the optical, from the optician into the internal order format. And then something happened. The old algorithm kicked in and overrode the individual measured data. And you know what? No one knew, because no one looked at customer impact. Everyone did their little task, right? Everyone said done. Right? The definition of done, I could discuss days, definition of done. But that's customer centricity, right? Customer centricity is, does it have an impact? Is it relevant, right? And you can do it for little things like that. Okay. Very good tool. Mixed data and individual use cases. I've told that story before. Anyone knows the story? Okay, good. This is a story from actually World War II. So British fighter planes were lost at large over Germany. So they had a little unit trying to analyze what went wrong and then armor the fighters, the planes, right, and to protect them better. And what you could see is this is the white spot is actually where a lot of those bullet holes hit, right? And they analyzed it, and they had statistically significant, whatever, you know, what is the density of the most hits. And they said, okay, this is where we need to put the armor. And then they showed it to a fighter plane, and what he said is, you know what? You don't need to armor there. You need to armor where the shots weren't, because that's where the bullets are for all the planes that didn't come back. Because you analyzed only the planes that came back, right? They didn't have a problem, right? The ones that didn't come back had a problem. You didn't even look at that, right? But they looked at the planes that came back because that was the easiest thing to do. You always have to look at what you measure. You always have to take the customer perspective. And I had it very often, right? We have a fantastic team at Mister Spex, but every once in a while, you know, stuff like that happens, right? So we have a problem in the checkout, whatever, right? And they said, okay, they come up with an Excel and say, okay, here's where the conversion rate drops. And then they ask, okay, which page are you measuring? It's like, oh, well, the checkout. They say, well, there's 7 steps in the checkout, right? Which page? It's like, you need to know what you're measuring. Right? Have you looked at the page, right? Is it different, right? Is there anything on the page that strikes you as being strange? You can't just do Excel, right? You need to look at it from a customer perspective and then bring it together, right? Bring the data together with a customer perspective to find that insight that you're looking for. That is a slide that I just randomly grabbed from the internet, but it's just going back to digital times and data. Obviously, a lot of the data that you by now have is in digital form, and you can put it into a data warehouse and you can put it to use. I was, astounded, flabbergasted when I looked at our data warehouse and was just a while ago, and it just didn't have the agility and the flexibility to really pull the data out that we needed, right? Because it had a classic ETL process and everything was stuck in a very hard structure. And if you wanted to have data, it was a data request, and that took like years until you had the data so you could use it. Long story short, you need to then, if you have the fundamentals and you start working with digital data, obviously you need to put them in a place where you can use them. And that is also true for surveys, right? If you look at, for example, if you measure Net Promoter Score, and people tell you they're detractors, you can send them an email, right? But you need to have it in your data warehouse, right? To be able to send them an email. So the survey answer of being a detractor needs to be on the customer ID, so CRM can send out an email. Obviously, you need to use the data. This is just one stupid example of personalization or whatever, because fundamentally, if you've learned about different segments, if you've learned what are their fundamental needs and motivations, you can then apply that actively. You need to get the right people. That's probably one of the biggest issues that we have. Everyone, just people who can work with data. And I mean, that's said very often, but you have to have cross-functional teams, right? Agile is not just quick and flexible and learning, whatever. It's, I think a fundamental dimension of Agile is cross-functional, right? You need to have everyone in the room to get a project forward. But that's not really even connected only to market research. It's just general stuff that are put in an order. All right, thank you.